Okay, today is May 31st, 2020, and we're interviewing Norm Rosenkrantz. So, can you tell us when you were born and where you were born?
Yeah, uh, I was born on March 13th, 1929. Uh, Lucky 13. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was Friday the 13th, but it was 3/13/29, and I was born in Brooklyn, and I was born at the Maimonides Hospital. I think it was called Israel Zion at the time, and it might have been changed to Maimonides.
And tell us a little bit about your childhood, about your mom and dad, when your brother was born.
Well, I have I have three brothers. I know that we moved to the Bronx, uh, and I do remember. I've seen pictures of myself where I had curly hair, but compared to today, it's gone. But anyhow, that's and my brother Jerry. No, I don't remember what hospital he was born in. He was, but he was born in May 1935, and my brother Alan was born December 12th, 1942, and my brother Pat, who is my brother adopted through marriage, through second marriage from my father. He was born on May, no, March 17th, 1935 also. And uh, they call him Pat because he was born on March 17th.
What do you remember about your childhood, though? Tell us some stories about your mom, your dad, your house, your neighborhood.
Well, I remember I remember living in the Bronx, and it was on Vise Avenue, and I was when we moved. I do remember that uh, Vise Avenue. Well, okay. I went. The school was PS 50. That's what it was called, standing for Public School 50. And the school went from kindergarten to sixth grade, and one of the classes that I was in that I really liked was current history, and that was a special class that I belonged to, and it had a schoolyard in the back, and went there. I don't remember exactly when we moved there, but I think we were on. But there was nothing, no uh, elevator, and I think it was on the think we lived on the third floor, and it was an apartment building, and it had steps going up to the entrance of the building, and I on the one thing that was significant, it had about a half a block away, it had something that we called then a candy store, and that's where we used to get our ice cream, and it had a telephone, and our apartment at that time, we did not have telephones. So when there was a telephone call for somebody on the street, there used to be kids waiting around there, and they would choose a kid, and they would have him go to where the person lived. It might be steps or so forth to get up to the second floor, fourth floor, tell the person that they had a telephone call, and the one who delivered the message, he usually got a tip, maybe a penny, maybe a nickel. But there are kids who just waited around by the telephone to earn some extra money. And the person who the call was for, he would come down to the candy store, and he would take the call. And that was really unique. You don't do that today, not with our cell phones. So that was really significant. And I do remember that during the summer, this is Vise Avenue, all the neighbors used to come downstairs with their chairs, and we used to sit there and what we would call talk to each other, or yentering, catching up on what was going on in the world, or just talking about many things. And my father, he loved Louie. He loved ice cream. So he would always, not me, he would send me to the ice cream store, and we would bring back ice cream cones, or maybe cones in small dishes. And we'd have a ball sitting out there. And the other thing I do remember is my brother Jerry. He loved to play cards, and the kids on the block there, they also loved cards. So when it got dark at night, we would go over to a telephone pole or a lighting pole, and that would be our lights, and we would sit there with a deck of cards, and we'd have fun, and we'd play various games under the lamppost.
What languages did you speak at home when Miriam, was alive?
Well, my father and mother would speak Yiddish when they didn't want us to hear what was going on, but we spoke English mainly. I knew some Yiddish, but that was not my main language, and I wasn't that fluent in Yiddish. And I was excuse me a minute. I was bar mitzvahed when we lived on Vise Avenue, and my rabbi lived on Vise Avenue also, but he lived up the street, and he had he used to have a walk-in apartment, and that walk-in apartment is where he used to. There was a room there, and he used to teach the boys. Girls were not really bar mitzvah at that time. He used to teach the boys their lessons, their Hebrew lessons, and he was pretty unique. He had lost one leg, so he had a wooden leg, and that's the way he used to get around. But a story that I remember is we had hired a shul. We didn't belong to the shul, but we had hired it where I was going to recite my bar mitzvah lessons from the Torah and read from the Torah. And my father got the shul through a friend of his from the other side, from Europe, and his name was Jake, and he used to own a pickle place, and he used to make his own pickles in the brine, and so he got us the shul, and I remember that nobody really had cars, so the rabbi, he had to walk to the shul, and I walked with him. And while going to the shul, when he got off the curb, he made a misstep, and he fell because of his wooden leg. He didn't have his balance. And so I helped pick him up, and thank God he was okay. And he walked with me to the shul, and it was a distance. And I recited the Torah, and my father and mother had invited people there, and it was and then at night, my father had something special. He had hired a band, and it was a hall there, and there were about he had invited around 250 people to the bar mitzvah. So it was quite a bar mitzvah at that time. And I was bar mitzvahed in 1942. I was born on 1942 in March. I don't know the exact date. And we had quite a time at the bar mitzvah, and there were speeches, and people were dancing, and the food was more than adequate. And one little incident at the bar mitzvah, someone was making a speech, and they mentioned Norman, and my brother Jerry was insulted, and he got up and said, "What about me?" So that was really something that still remember all that time. Jerry so it was 42. Jerry was 7 years old. He was born in 35. And my father and mother decided to move at the end of the year 1942, and we were where we lived in the East Bronx was let's see, we moved there and we were moving to the West Bronx. And one of the main reasons we wanted to move to the West Bronx is that my mother's aunt used to live there with her husband and children. And her name was Lena, and we used to call her Tante Lena, which is aunt. Tante was aunt in Yiddish. And but I do want to tell you one other story, that when I graduated 6th grade, I had to go to another school, and that was on Boston Road, and it was about 5-6 blocks away, and we used to naturally walk there. And that was a junior high school. You went from the 7th grade, the 8th grade, and the 9th grade, and then you actually went to high school. But in this particular school, they had something known as the Rapids, Rapids, the Rapids. And so you didn't have to go 3 years to the junior high school. You could go 2 years, and I happened to be in a rapid class, so they had me skip 1 year. And one of the things that was very unique about the high school, the junior high school, was that they said no more writing. This is the only school that it happened to. Instead of manuscript writing, you had to print, and you had to learn how to print fast. And this is what they used at junior high school to write reports and write on the blackboard. That's what they used. And so instead of going 3 years to junior high, I only went 2 years to junior high. And it was a co-ed school. In fact, one of the people here where I live now in Casa del Sol happened to go to that junior high school. Her name was Selma Rosen. And just a coincidence, which I learned about her. And I think she was there when I was there. She and her brother both went to that high school, and I know she lived in the neighborhood. So pretty. When I think back, I still remember it.
What about when you were growing up with your mom? How did she treat you and Jerry and Louie? I mean, what kind of housekeeper was she? Did she have a lot of friends? What did she do with her time?
Well, the friends that she had were more of Louie, my father's friends, they had an organization called the Snatina's Young Men's Society and Snatina's Snatina Society. And this society was mainly a burial society. But going back to my mother, the friends she had mainly were from the society. These people were mainly from Europe. My mother was from Lodz, and that was in Poland. And my father was from Austria. And the name of the place that he was from was called Snestin, the same as the society. And I remember my mother was a pretty good chef, pretty good cook. And she made a lot of things that my father preferred, especially on Friday night. They had chicken, and it was boiled chicken and soup. And when I was going to school, my at PS 50, when we brought lunch, we weren't that rich, and we mainly had white bread sandwiches. It was called Wonder Bread, and mainly on the sandwiches themselves, they had jelly and cream cheese, and she would cut it in half, and that would be my lunch. And Jerry was behind me because I was born in 29. He was born in 35, so 6 years. So he was in the lower grade of PS 50. And but she was, I would say, she was a pretty good cook, and I loved her quite a bit.
What about your father? Did he cook at all, or what kind of work was he doing? How did he support your family?
Well, Louis had his own business. When I was born in March, and he had his own business. He opened it up in I think around close to that time too, March, April. I'm not sure exactly when, but that was unfortunately a very, very bad year, because in October of 1929, that's when they had the stock market crash, and they had what they call today, and call it then, the Great Depression. So things were not that wonderful. And as far as Louis had a sheet metal shop. He dealt with the metals, and he made containers and drums and different units, and he was in business with a partner of his who he had worked with previously, and he had a place in downtown Manhattan. It was on a place called Bleecker Street, and near the Bowery. And the Bowery was was known for, of all things, a lot of drunken guys. In fact, they wrote a song about the Bowery, and on the Bowery there was the one of the trains called the Third Avenue Elevator, which ran up and down Manhattan. And my mother, I don't remember her working, although I've been told that she worked for a bookbinder, or she was a bookkeeper. I don't really have all the facts, although there was something written, and my nephew Andrew sent me something recently, or I should say you sent me something recently, which Andrew discovered. So that was quite interesting and filled in some of the gaps.
What about Louie though? I mean, what kind of hours was he working? Um, how did he provide for all of you during World War II, I guess it was, well, and prior, I mean, prior to the Great Depression?
Well, I wasn't there prior to the Depression, so it was 1929,
Right.
and things were very, very, very difficult for him. He told me stories that there were times when he did not come home because he did not have car fare to come home. But somehow he provided for us. I never remember going away hungry from the table. I don't remember that. And whether he borrowed money or put money together, or there was always, as I say, food on the table. We did not starve, and but one of the things that I was told is that we moved a lot. And one of the reasons that we moved a lot is because you couldn't afford the rent. So you got out and moved to various places. And I just remember mainly living in the Bronx. I don't remember, as I said, I don't remember Brooklyn at all. But my mother took care of Jerry and me, and I never remember her working. She did work when she was single, and I do remember that. Not personally, but I was told that she did do some work before she was married.
And you lived in an apartment house or a house?
No, we didn't live in a house. We lived in an apartment house. We didn't know anything about individual homes. We weren't even close to it, and I don't think the mentality was there, to live in a home, and actually also to own a car. My father didn't own a car, couldn't afford a car, and but uh, but later on in my life, we did when he was when he remarried. Uh, we did buy a house in the Bronx.
What about
Uh,
when you were growing up? What about your friends and sports and your activities? What kinds of things did you do?
well, we played something which we called stickball. It was a broom handle, and we used to have a pink ball, which was called a Spalding. It was a rubber ball, and we used to have nine boys who played stickball, and there was, an, it was an imitation of baseball, and uh, the main thing was you used to have uh, where we lived on the streets sewers, and it was and the sewer you could lift it up, but they didn't want you to lift it up because you could fall down into the sewer itself. But we had it was just based on regular baseball, first base, second base, so forth, home run. And the whole idea was you could either bounce the ball and hit it, or you could throw the ball up a little, and you had the handle of the bat, which was a broom handle. You used to cut the broom off, and then you would hit the ball. And I'll tell you, I was a good manager, but a lousy player. I couldn't hit the ball no matter what you can do. I never learned properly. And but we used to have a team, and we got together, and we used to play another team. Could be a team in the next block or a team 3 blocks away, and we just used to have that for fun. Uh, I did not play baseball uh, because I couldn't hit a stickball. How am I going to hit a baseball? Impossible. So, and I was a fast runner, which was uh, great. I love to run, and I used to, uh, but and I used to like to play football because I was a fast runner. I could be a receiver, that someone could throw the ball to me and I would go get it. But I was not a heavy. I didn't weigh that much, and if there was contact, that was not my game. So I used to try to run as fast as I could to avoid the other people from tackling me or touching me or hitting me or trying to knock the football out of my hands. Uh, I did not I did not play tennis, and I didn't play golf, and I didn't play hockey. But I
Did,
did have I did have skates, roller skates. So we used to roller skate when we were kids also.
well, Louie didn't play any sports, did he? Did he teach you, or did you throw a ball with him?
No, no, he was way too busy working, working. That was it. He didn't have, he didn't have that much time for me or for Jerry. Uh, and we had to do things ourselves, and we learned how to play. There were one thing, in these apartment houses, there were plenty of kids who played on the street. And so we learned from them. And we used to have quite a bit of fun. And sports was big. Oh, another game we used to play is kick the can. We used to have an empty can, and we would kick the can and play it at the four corners. And we would kick the can and try to get to first base or second base or third base or home when you kick the can, and you try to kick it away from the people who were fielding the can. And also we used to play something else called Johnny on a Pony. Do you know that one, Mike? No, you didn't. Well, Johnny on a Pony was there was one guy, a big, heavy guy, and he would put his hands against the building, and what you would do is you would run and jump on him, and then the next person would run and jump on him. And you wanted to get a real big guy who could, not fall down, because the whole idea was to get as many guys on this first guy to hold you up. Well, hey, we didn't have money, and we thought of different games to play. So you're bringing this out at me. Wow. But I was always a little guy, so I would be probably the last guy to get up, to jump on him, because if they jumped on me, I'd fall down probably, get hurt or something like that.
Was everyone in your neighborhood Jewish?
There were a lot of Jewish kids, a lot of Jewish people, and we didn't know about anything else. And of course, when it came to Christmas, and the Christian kids, they got toys, and we used to run downstairs on Christmas, and and we wanted to see what our Christian friends got. Whether they got a bicycle, or games, or different things, and we hoped that we could play with them, or we hoped that we could. They'll lend us their bicycle or skates, or or their games. So that used to be fun, quite a bit of fun on Christmas Day. And also other games we played was Halloween, where we used to have what was it, a big stocking, and we used to fill it with chalk. We broke up the chalk and made it very pliable, because we didn't want to hurt anyone. And we used to each have the socks, and we used to go around hitting each other. That was Halloween. I don't think they do that today. I don't think they know about it today. But again, we were poor, and as I say, we thought up new games, new things to keep us busy. And also, we used to have a group of kids got together like a clique, and there were boys and girls, and we used to have boyfriends and girlfriends, and this was in the summertime under the lights, because otherwise it was raining and snowing and whatnot, and so we took advantage of the spring and the summer.
What about, let's go back to Jerry. What do you remember about him as a kid? And did you hang around with him at all, or not really because of the age difference?
Well, as I said, one of the things that we did do together is play cards. I used to teach him games, and we used to play cards under the lights. And Jerry had his own friends, and one of his friends I remember was a kid named Buddy Klein. Who remember it? Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I don't know. But they used to hang out quite a bit together. And Jerry, and you know the story, but the story is that Jerry had a mastoid, which was his ears, they got inflamed, and he needed an operation. And we all know the story that Pop and Mom couldn't afford to operate on him, and they pleaded with the doctor to help them out. And thank God he did. First, he had one ear, which was in very bad condition. And then he got that in the second ear. And thank God he came out okay, and the doctor operated. And I know that it was a difficult time with Jerry when he was growing up. I think he had it when he was 2 years old, 3 years old. I'm not sure of his what his age. Yeah. So it was tough sledding, and my parents were they were so distraught, so sad, because they thought they would lose him. And thank God it turned out okay.
So is there anything else that you remember of your childhood, pre-bar mitzvah?
Yeah, well, actually, I was very interested in sports, especially baseball, and I really got involved with baseball when I was 10 or 11. But I remember 1941, so I was 9 and 2 is 11. I was 11 years old, and I was listening to the World Series, and that's when I really got interested, because my father, he didn't know baseball, and Jerry, he was too young, so he wasn't really interested. And I was listening on the radio to a game between the Dodgers and the Yankees. And the Yankees, they were the best. They had great players, and they used to win a lot of World Series. And this particular game, the Dodgers were playing again the Yankees, and it was the top of the ninth inning, and the Dodgers were winning 4-2. And if they won this game, they would tie it up. They would tie up the World Series. And what happened is there were 2 outs in the 9th inning. And the Dodgers, they only needed 1 more out. And what happened is that they had a catcher named Mickey Owens. And there were 2 strikes on, I believe it was Tommy Henrich. He was one of their stars among other stars like Joe DiMaggio and King Kong Keller. They just unbeatable. So Tommy Henrich is up, 2 strikes, and the pitcher throws the ball, and the batter, Tommy Henrich, he misses it, and instead of there being 3 out, Mickey Owens missed the ball. And so Tommy Henrich gets on first base, and then the other Yankees start to come up to the plate, and no one wants to make out. They keep hitting, getting hits, and before you know it, the Dodgers lost the game because the Yankees scored about 5 runs, and they beat the Dodgers 7-4, and they lost the World Series. And it was just remarkable. Anyone who is a baseball fan, and you know, you get the feeling, it's in the gut. You just, how could they lose? But the Dodgers, they had a name for themselves. They called them the Brooklyn Bums, and they were. And after that, that was their title. But they made up for it now. And I'm still a baseball fan, and I'm still an NBA fan, and I'm a fan. I love sports.
How long have you been a Dodgers fan?
Well, the Dodgers, I think, came here in 1958. So I've been, naturally, there weren't any professional teams here in Los Angeles until the Dodgers came. And so I've been a fan since that time.
Well, prior to that, you were a fan.
Yeah, I was a fan a long time. Well, I was a fan since I was 11, but the thing in New York that was so great was that there were 3 professional teams: the Giants with the Polo Grounds, the Yankees in Yankee Stadium, and the Dodgers in Ebbets Field. And it's just, we had all sorts of sports in New York, and it was a great town, and it's still a great town for sports, but you know, they're not the power that they were, although we will see what happens this year if baseball ever gets started again. Who knows if any sports get started again.
All right.
All right.
We're going to end this first segment.
Okay.
That was your time when you were born until you were about 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for interviewing me, and I hope I gave you some new information and repeated some old information. Okay. Love you. Bye-bye.